everyone, this is Courtney from Ruby Red Farm. We just got finished moving our coops and we went ahead and cleaned it out. Come along and we'll show you how we do it. So we ended up moving the coop. It had simply gotten way too wet where the birds were. We normally would have waited a couple more weeks simply because in the winter we don't have to move them as often normally, but this year we have had an ironically unseasonably warm winter. However, the problem was we had very cold weather followed by unseasonably warm weather, and that really did mess up our normal schedule. So we're moving the coop a little bit sooner than the normal. We typically use the four-wheeler to move our chicken coop. As big and heavy as it is, it actually rolls very well even with just the four-wheeler. With certain situations, if we're going uphill, we'll use the truck. However, when it is muddy, and it is beyond muddy right now at our house, we end up using the tractor. So we had to bust out the tractor. Our tractor has seen better days. It's a very old tractor. It also doesn't even really have working brakes, so we use it sparingly. However, it was very much necessary for this specific weather situation. I'm always trying to help line things up, get the pin in, get everything where it belongs, but for the most part, my job on tractor moving day is to get all the little parts and pieces and to just be helpful. So I think it's important that even though I am not skilled enough to drive a tractor and I am not necessarily the person in charge of when we're moving this stuff, I play a very important role simply by helping. So again, I'm moving lots of little stuff. Right now I ran off screen to go and open up the netting. This netting has various openings in it where different segments end and start. And so I'm getting that open wide enough to fit a tractor and a giant chicken coop through it. And then I'll go back through and you see all the little bits that are left behind. Most of those are waters. We have our oyster shell back there as well. And so my job really at the end of the day is just, again, to provide assistance, and it is valued assistance. So if you are just the helper at your farm, do not feel like you are not contributing, because I assure you that you are, and you're saving your person a whole lot of time. So you see here all these chickens just fleeing for their lives. They're so scared of that loud tractor. That's another reason we actually try not to use it. But we've mentioned in the past, we actually prefer to move our tractors at night. With the added element of the extreme mud, we decided to do it during the day this time. Simply with the mud, for one, my husband has sprained his ankle too many times to risk it during night. But on top of that, if something were to start spinning or if anything went haywire, it's going to be a million times harder if it's dark. So while it normally is much easier for us to do these things at night, this time it was much easier to do it during the day. Here I am again, just kind of bebopping around, trying to save time, so I have to get the ramps up, get things out of the way. He's going to be backing into place here then to get our other coop moving. So if you haven't checked out our video of building this other chicken tractor, this was Chicken Tractor 2.0 for us. We ended up going with a much boxier design to make it a little bit more efficient for the amount of space that's inside of it. Our other coop we know is much, much cuter. This one is not nearly as looksy, however, it'll look a lot better once it's painted. It'll look more rustic and country. But for now, we were simply going for function. So again, if you haven't checked out that video, highly encourage you to go check out part 2. Or if you haven't seen part 1 yet, go check that out as well. We will be having a part 3 come out once we finally get around to painting that thing. But we are dependent on the weather before we're ever going to get that done. So switching gears, now we're going to be going through the kind of tedious task of moving all this netting. We use Premier 1 netting. We are able to electrify it. We don't typically do that though because we thankfully don't struggle too much with predators. Once we have the netting moved to where it's at least partially in place, we start the lovely process of luring the birds over to their new area. Now thankfully with this group, they already kind of had moved with us, partly due to fear of the tractor and partly due to the fact that there was fresher or grass, and they were just desperate for new grass. So they moved pretty much on their own, which I'm not going to lie, we got lucky. That's pretty rare. Normally we're chasing birds for a good hour afterwards. Now we've got our netting up. We end up just kind of reworking it a couple times, making sure all the ends meet and everything lines up for a nice enclosed space to keep the birds at least encouraged to stay in their spot. We go through again then, and these are mealworms. These are really going to get their attention, right? And I'm just, again, trying to get these birds to go to their new home and make sure also that they're not escaping the other direction. So there's a lot to that.
Another Sunday.
So we're just kind of finalizing the big move here. I'm bringing over the waters off to the left. Brandon's over there filling up feeders. We pretty much restock on everything that we possibly can when we move these chickens because we're already kind of in chicken mode. We'd been out there over an hour at this point, and when you get to that point, you're willing to just kind of do all the chores at once. I'm going out now and collecting the eggs. The girls have just not been laying very well. We've only been getting about a dozen eggs a day, which, as you can imagine, is significantly less than normal. We got up to 2 dozen today, so I think they're on the mend. But I'm gathering the eggs because we also decided to go ahead and clean out the coop. Now, our coop, unfortunately, had just way more in it than we typically would for this time of year. With the extreme cold weather, we had to prepare by putting some extra bedding in there, and in our case, that is hay. So we put all this extra hay in, and normally that would last us quite a while, but the unfortunate reality is we ended up with extreme rains right after a extreme week and a half of cold. And so what that did was these hens really did not want to leave the coop. They stayed in and obviously left way more manure than normal, but they also tracked in a lot more rain from outside than normal. And you can kind of see in this image here, there's a good 6 inches of mostly sopping wet hay, which is just not what typically happens in the winter. But we've had such a hot, cold kind of winter that it's really messed with our typical plan. So these are our folding roosting bars. These are fantastic for that reason right there. You take them up and remove them, and they're much easier to remove because they fit through that man door, which is wonderful. Now this one here is a little bit bigger than the first, so I needed a little bit of help. But working together, we can easily move these, get them out of the way, and get to cleaning, which unfortunately, as you'll see here in a moment, was a lot tougher than normal, again, just because it was so much wetter. It's just gross. So typically when we're doing our winter bedding, we try to follow a deep bedding method, which typically works in a way that it ends up composting slightly, and as it breaks down, it produces heat. However, with the weather conditions I was describing a minute ago, we ended up with too wet of hay, and it just completely messes up the balance to the point where instead of composting and producing a little bit of heat, if we had left it, I have a strong feeling it would have ended up just rotting instead. And obviously, it wasn't exactly a clean, healthy environment for the birds to be living in either. You can end up with more foot problems if you let them live in a wet environment. They're simply not going to lay as well if they're not warm and happy.
Come over there. You get that center block out yet?
I'm carving it right now. Oh, you're taking it out? Probably nice there. Good, out for a second. Oh. Move this thing again then?
I don't know.
You said to shovel out the tongue.
Yeah, just shovel it out so it doesn't freeze around it.
So we ended up working probably a solid hour of just cleaning out the coop. The shovels were just not working as well as normal, like I mentioned, with the texture of the hay. He finally was able to get kind of essentially a small pitchfork type of tool. I don't know the actual name for it because I'm not a farmer yet, but it worked much, much better, at least to break it up, and then I could use the shovel to get the rest out. Lots of wind on this day, meaning lots of stuff getting blown in our eyes and all of that. With it being a much wetter hay, we didn't worry about masks this time simply because it's so soppy, it's not getting airborne nearly as much. Chickens will be happy. They actually like digging through all of their used bedding, looking for bugs, eating the hay, really just for excitement, if nothing else. We have got this thing pretty much cleaned out now. We are down to the last scoop. Nasty. But so much better. There's a floor. Alrighty, we'll fill it back up. Girls will be good to go. We'll just do the other one next weekend, yeah?
Yeah, maybe.
Here's the inside of our OG coop, by the way. The live and learn coop. That still works pretty well for us. I'm going to leave some to the sides. I'll just put it in the nesting boxes. If you can just leave a little extra there. Nice clean slate. There we go. They are all set. So that's how we do it, folks. We ended up having to clean the coop out a little bit sooner than normal because of the recent cold that we had, followed by torrential rain. We ended up having a much wetter, fuller coop than we expected in late January. Went ahead and got the girls a clean slate. Hopefully this will get their laying back in order as well. If you like this content, guys, go ahead and hit like on this video. Also hit subscribe to stay up to date with our journey into homesteading. This was Courtney from Ruby Red Farm. I hope you all have a great day. I have got to wash this car art. It's been a messy week around here.